Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Bhavaswa, Tat Savitra Varenyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Asto Ma Satgamya. तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गमय ओम सेनावतु सेनावनतु सवीर्यं कर्वावै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति शांति शांति. Let's open our Uddhava Gita books and we are in the middle of chapter 13, where Lord Krishna is explaining what is the perfection of spiritual knowledge is. Let's start with the verse number 25. Yadatmane arpitam chitam shantam sattvopabrihitam dharmam jnanam saviragyam aishwaryam cha abhipadyate. When one's peaceful mind that is enriched by the mode of goodness is fixed on the super soul, one attains religiosity, knowledge, renunciation, and opulence. So peaceful mind, full of sattvika. See, with the sattvic way of living, sattvic food, sattvic ahar, achar, vyavhar, the whole life of sattvic, mind becomes peaceful. When our mind is not peaceful, we should see that where is it coming from. So he says, mind that is enriched by the sattvikta. And then what do we do with that sattvic mind? He says, fix it on Paramatma, super soul. Okay? One attains religiosity, knowledge, renunciation, and opulence. Dharma, jnana, vairagya, aishwarya. Everything we attain from there. One might question what is lacking for one who is pure devotee of the Lord. Shri Krishna answers this question in this verse. So we got to look at it. Do we have that kind of a life? Full of sattvika? One should not think that unalloyed devotional service is a limb of jnana. The devotional service that is seen as a limb of jnana is different from pure devotional service, which is untouched by any contamination of karma and jnana. One who desires material enjoyment can gradually come to the platform of pure devotional service and at the same time receive the fulfillment of all his desires. If one can fix his mind on the super soul, then as a result of his devotion, he can achieve all desirable perfections of life. When one faithfully cultivates pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord, symptoms such as knowledge of the Supreme Lord and the individual spirit soul, detachment from all that is not related to Krishna, dependence on the mercy of the Supreme Lord, steadiness of mind, and being firmly situated in the mode of pure goodness are observed in his character. Verse number 26. Yad arpitam tad vikalpehe indriye paridhavati rajas balam chasan nishtam chit vidhi viparyam. When consciousness is fixed on the material body, family members, and other objects of sense gratification, one passes his life chasing after material objects with the help of the senses. Being under the control of the mode of passion, and passion is what? Rajasiddha. One becomes dedicated to impermanent things. And in this way, irreligion, ignorance, attachment, and wretchedness predominate. When one's mind contemplates the activities of the material body and household affairs, the mode of passion becomes prominent so that one becomes mad after sense gratification. It's just like a running from one object to the other, even to the extent of performing prohibited activities. Because when the desires are so many, and you cannot get them the right way, you don't even mind doing the wrong deeds, prohibited activities, cheating, stealing, hurting. The mind of such a person is uncontrolled, thus becoming the cause of irreligiosity, ignorance, material attachment, and tremendous suffering. Tremendous suffering. Those who do not avail themselves of the opportunity to serve the Supreme Lord, being overwhelmed by desires to enjoy sense gratifications, will become bound by attachment to temporary material objects, thus creating so many disturbances in their life. Verse number 27. Dharmo madbhakti krit prokto jnanam cha ek atme hai darshanam gunasva asango vairagyam aishwaryam cha animadyah. The scriptures declare that real religious principles are those that lead one to devotional service to man. Real knowledge is to see everything in relation to the super soul. Real detachment is total disinterest in the objects of material sense gratification. And real opulence is the 8 mystic perfections, which includes anima siddhi. So those are like a perfections which we learn in the other scriptures also, anima adi. The real religion means devotional service to the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is the personification of knowledge. Therefore, one who has been delivered from ignorance naturally engages in the devotional service of the Lord and is considered thoroughly religious. So it's so funny. Without understanding, people will say that, no, I don't believe in religion. I'm not religious. I am spiritual. But religion really means that you are connecting with God. Religion. One who is detached from the 3 modes of material nature and the objects of sense gratification, produced from them, is considered to be detached. The 8 mystic powers that were previously described to Uddhava are the ultimate attainments of material power and opulence. So that has come in the previous verses, previous chapters, if you remember, what 8 powers are. Now Uddhava is asking a question. Yama kati vidha prokto niyamo vari karshnaha ka shama ko dama krishna kaha titiksha dhriti prabhu. And then in verse number 29 also, so 29, 30, 31, 32, these are all spoken by Uddhava. Kim danam, kim tapaha, shauryam kim, satyam ritam uchyate, kastyagaha kim dhanam cheshtam ko yagya kacha dakshinaha, punsaha kim svidbalam shriman bhago, labhascha keshva, ka vidya ripara ka shri kim sukham dukham evja. 31. Ka pandita, kascha murkha, ka pantha, utpats chaka, ka swargo narkaha, ka svit, ko bandhur ut kim griham. And the last verse in this section. Ka adya, ko dridro, va kripnaha, ka ishvaraha, etan prashnan mam bruhi vipritam samcha satpate. So he says, I'm asking these questions. And most of these words you are familiar with because you have studied a lot of other scriptures. So let's see what is he asking. See, ka means what? Shri Uddhav said, my dear Lord Krishna, O chastiser of the enemies, please tell me how many types of disciplinary regulations and prohibitions there are. Yam and the niyam, he's asking. My Lord, please define mental equilibrium. Sham, self-control, Dham, and the real meaning of tolerance and steadfastness, Titiksha and Dhriti. What are the charity, austerity, and heroism, and how can truth and reality be best described? What is renunciation and what is real wealth? What is desirable, what is sacrifice, and what is religious remuneration? My dear Keshav, O most fortunate one, how can I understand the strength, opulence, and merit of a particular person? What is the best education? What is actual humility? And what is real beauty? What are happiness and unhappiness? Who is learned and who is a fool? What are the true and the false paths in life, and what are heaven and hell? Who is indeed a true friend? And what is one's real home? Who is a rich man and who is a poor man? Who is wretched and who is actually fortunate? O Lord of the devotees, kindly explain these to me along with their opposites. So as a devotee, or even as a jnani, we need to ask these questions. Do we really know the answers or not clearly? After hearing about various kinds of religious principles, Shri Uddhav now asks Krishna to give authoritative definitions of the yam and the niyams that comprised civilized life throughout the world. The word Ishta means most desirable. The word Shri means opulence. Uddhav also wants to hear from Krishna about that which is just the opposite of civilized life. So that means what? On which path we should not go as a devotee, we need to know that too. So it's like what should we do and what should we stay away from? So now Lord Krishna is answering in the rest of this chapter the questions of Uddhava. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha. Ahimsa satyam asteyam asango harir asanjya. Astikyam brahmacharyam cha maunam satharyam kshama bhayam. Shaucham japas tapohoma shraddha tithyam mad archanam. Tirtha atmanam prartheha tushtir acharya sevanam. And verse number 35. Ete yamasa niyama ubhyor dvadash samrita punsam upasitas tat yatha kamam duhanti. Supreme Lord said, non-violence, ahimsa, truthfulness, not serving others' property, asteya. Detachment from worldly association, humility, freedom from possessiveness, faith in the principles of religion, celibacy, silence, steadiness, forgiveness, and fearlessness. These 12 are referred to as yam. External cleanliness, internal cleanliness, chanting the holy names of the Lord, austerity, fire sacrifice, faith, serving guests, worshipping me, visiting holy places, engaging only in activities that are ultimately beneficial, and service to the spiritual master. These 12 are called niyams. My dear Uddhava, these 24 practices bestow all desired benedictions upon those who devotedly cultivate them. Okay? So we are familiar with the yam and the niyams from the Yogdarshan Rishi Patanjali. These are not different, just more elaborated. So over there we see 10, over here we see 24. But the same thing. In these three verses, Supreme Lord defines yam and niyam. There are two types of purification, internal and external. By carefully cultivating these 24 yam and the niyam, all of one's desires become fulfilled. That means the worldly desires are not there. We see that they become less and less and less, and ultimately no worldly desires. That is the fulfillment of the desires. Okay? No desires left. The 12 yams of non-enviousness, remaining fixed in the truth, refraining from stealing another's property, staying aloof from all kinds of bad association, always attempting to do good to others, renunciation of unnecessary sense enjoyment, unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, celibacy, giving up idle talks, steadiness in one's practices, tolerance of others' offenses, and fear of transgressing the prescribed rules and regulations. The 12 niyams are external cleanliness, such as bathing, internal cleanliness by serving Lord Hari, chanting the holy names of the Lord, observing vows such as Ekadashi, performing sacrifice for the satisfaction of Lord Hari, maintaining faith in the discussions of the glories of Lord Hari, serving the devotees of Lord Hari, worshipping the deity, traveling to holy places of pilgrimage, engages in activities meant for one's ultimate welfare, remaining fixed in observing the codes of proper conduct, being satisfied in all conditions of life, and serving the spiritual master. Then he further explains in verse number 36, Shamo manishtaha buddhir dam indriye sanyama titiksha dukh samarshoho jivo upastat jayodriti dand nyasaha paramadhanam kama tyagas tapasritam swabhava vijaya shauryam satyam cha samdarshanam अन्याच च सुनृतः वाणी कवि भी परिकीर्तितः कर्मस्व असंगमः शौचम त्यागः संन्यास उच्यते. 39 धर्म इष्टम धनम नृणाम यज्ञोहम भगवत्मा दक्षिणा ज्ञान संदेशः प्राणायाम परम बलम. Full concentration of the mind on me constitutes mental equilibrium. That's a sham. And complete control of the senses is a self-control. That is dham. So sham and dham. So in the previous set of verses, he talked about sham and the niyam. Now, sham, dham. Tolerance means patiently enduring distress. And steadfastness occurs when one controls the urges of the tongue and genitals. The greatest charity is to give up all envy toward others. And renunciation of sense gratification is real austerity. Real heroism is to conquer one's natural tendency to enjoy material life. And reality is seeing the Supreme Lord in everything. And everything in the Supreme Lord. Truthfulness means to speak honestly in a pleasing manner, as declared by great sages. So it has to be Satya also. it has to be Priya also. Cleanliness is attained by detachment from fruitive activities. And renunciation indicates a sannyas order of life. The true desirable wealth for human beings is religiousness. And I, the Supreme Lord, am the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Religious remuneration is devotion for the spiritual master with a desire to acquire real knowledge. Because where do we get the knowledge? From a guru. And the greatest strength is the pranayam system of breath control. Here the Lord defines those qualities that should be cultivated by all who desire to advance toward the goal of human life. Shama means to fix the mind on Lord Krishna, because without Krishna consciousness, peacefulness of mind is simply emptiness. So we are not looking for a shunya, we are looking for the divine peace. Dham means to control the senses. One who wants to impart instructions to others without himself controlling the senses will certainly be mocked. That's we often call people who are not practicing what they are preaching, non-practicing preachers. And we do mock like that. Tolerance means to patiently endure the insults of others, as well as all kinds of distress. It is simply an artificial show if one performs some great austerity and yet is unwilling to tolerate the abuses of others. Real steadfastness is achieved when one carefully controls his tongue and genitals. Real charity is the renunciation of all kinds of violence toward others. So all kinds of violence, that means physically also, verbally also, emotionally or with our thoughts also. If one contributes to charities while at the same time exploiting others by engaging them in hellish factory work, this is simply hypocrisy. So that means if you're earning money the wrong way, but on the other hand, you are giving a lot of charities, that is a hypocrisy. Austerity means to forego all kinds of material comforts while observing the prescribed vows, such as Ekadashi. In a Hindu system of living, there are so many days where we are supposed to do the fasting, and Ekadashi is one of them. Real austerity is not torturing the body just to achieve name and fame. Real heroism is to conquer lust, anger, and greed. If one can conquer these three enemies, he is a greater hero than one who simply vanquishes his political enemies. Lust, anger, and greed. Kam, Krodh, and Lobh. Equal vision can be exhibited by one who is not envious and who sees how the super soul is present along with the individual soul within all types of bodies. Bodies are many, but soul is one. This vision is pleasing to the Supreme Lord, who then awards further advancement to the devotee. Reality is only truly understood when one sees the spiritual equality of all living entities, as confirmed by Shri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse number 32. He says he is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. Sukham va yadi va dukkham sa yogi paramomata. One who is actually an advanced soul feels compassion upon experiencing the miseries of the conditioned souls. other jivatmas. Truthfulness means to present the facts clearly and not distort the truth to avoid offending materialistic men. However, in the name of truthfulness, one should not become a fault finder. The truth should be spoken to elevate others to the spiritual platform, not to push forward one's limited agenda. Cleanliness is more than regular bathing. As long as the mind is absorbed in thinking of sense gratification, one must be considered contaminated, even if he has taken countless baths. Therefore, real cleanliness is purification of the mind. Real renunciation involves detachment from the false egoistic conceptions that the body is the self and everything in relation to the body is a possession. If after giving up all one's material possessions, one remains attached to family members, that renunciation is only a show. So complete detachment is not just only from the physical wealth, from the relationships too, from this body too. Real wealth is to possess the knowledge of self-realization and not just so much land and money. Sacrifice is one of the names of the Lord. And so one should not think that the performance of sacrifices is meant for achieving temporary rewards. The best form of remuneration to the Guru is to render selfless service by distributing the knowledge one has received to others. To fix one's intelligence in the service of the Supreme Lord while renouncing the natural propensity to accept and reject things for one's personal sense gratification is called sham. To restrain the senses from unrestrictedly enjoying their sense objects is called dham. So in simple terms, dham is indriya daman, controlling the senses. Sham is peacefulness of the mind. To tolerate the distress that one is destined to suffer, thinking it to be the Lord's mercy and refraining from feelings of jealousy because of another's happiness is called the diksha. Always remembering that God's law is a very just law. If we are going through a difficult time right now, it's our own karma. It's not that God is punishing us and not punishing others. Okay? So that is the diksha. Forbearance. To abstain from all kinds of sense gratification, such as the relishing of very palatable food, is called steadfastness. To give up the mentality of unnecessarily punishing one for his faults is called dhan. To give up all desire for material sense enjoyment despite having such facilities is called tapasya. To subdue one's natural thirst for sense enjoyment is called shaurya. To see everything in relation to the Supreme Lord is called samdarshan. This is the best form of satya. Speaking simply yet boldly is called, yet boldly is called Veda. Speaking simply yet boldly is called Veda. To remain detached from material enjoyment while utilizing everything in the service of Krishna is called Shaucha. To refrain from enjoying the objects of the senses is called sannyas. To follow religious principles is the most desirable form of dhan. To serve the Supreme Lord is actual yajna. To instruct others in the knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Lord is called dakshina. And to regulate the mind by breathing exercises is pranayama. So in all those verses, first Uddhava asked, what are these? And over here in these verses, Lord Krishna has given a very simple, to the point definitions of these terms. Verse number 40. Bhagom Eshvaraho Bhavo Labho Madbhaktir Uttamaha Vidyatmane Vidabadho Jugupsaha Harir Takarmasu Shri Guna Nirpeksheha Sukham Dukham Sukhatya Dukham Kam Sukh Upekshaha Pandito Bandh Mokshvit. 42 is Murkho Dehadye Aham Buddhi Pantha Man Nigma Samrita Utpats Chit Vikshepaha Swarga Sattva Gunodya Narkas Tam Unaho Bandhu Gurur Aham Sake Griham Shrir Manushyam Gunadyaho Ki Adya Uchyate Dadidryoho Yastva Santushtaha Kripno Yo Jitendriyaha Guneshva Asaktaha Dhiraha Isha Gunasango Viparyaha. And the last one, verse number 45. Et Uddhavte Prashnaha Sarve Sadhu Nirupita Kim Varniten Bahunaha Lakshnam Gunadosha Gunadosha Drishi Dosho Gunasta Tubhye Varjita. And with this last verse, this chapter ends also. Actual opulence or bhag is my own nature, in which I exhibit the 6 unlimited opulences. The supreme gain of life or labh is devotional service unto me. Actual education or vidya is to remove the conception of duality from the mind of the conditioned soul. So duality means two. It's only him everywhere, God. Real modesty or hri is to be disgusted with abominable activities. Real beauty or shri is to possess good qualities such as detachment. Real happiness or sukh is to transcend material happiness and distress, whereas distress or to dukh is to constant hankering for sex enjoyment. A learned man or pandit is one who knows the process of liberation from material bondage. And a fool or murkh is one who identifies with his material body and mind. The real path or sat path is that which ultimately leads to me, whereas the wrong path or ku path is sense gratification, which simply bewilders the mind. Heaven or swarg is the predominance of the mode of goodness, and narak or hell is the predominance of the mode of ignorance. I am the true friend or bandhu because I act as the spiritual master of the entire world. The body of the human being is his grih or residence. One who is endowed with all good qualities is adhe or rich, and one who is dissatisfied with life is daridra or poor. A kripan or miser is one who cannot control his senses, whereas one who is detached from sense gratification is truly a controller or ish. One who is attached to sense gratification is just the opposite or a slave. My dear Uddhava, I have thus elucidated all of the matters about which you inquire. There is no need for a more elaborate description of these good and bad qualities, because to constantly see good and bad is itself a bad quality. The best quality is to transcend material good and evil. So in other words, good and evil is in the Prakriti. We got to transcend from the Prakriti, attach ourselves to that which is beyond good and evil. That is Paramatma. Because compassion is recognized throughout the world as an exalted quality, the Lord has not described it here. Actual bhag or opulence is possessed by the supreme controller. The controlling power of the living entities in this world, or even the demigods in heaven, cannot be considered real bhag. Attainment of devotional service to the Supreme Lord is one's real asset, and not his children, home, and so on, which are all subject to destruction. Real knowledge is that which enables one to see everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, not that which is acquired by an academic, such as knowledge of grammar and so on. The word free means to feel disgust at the mere thought of sinful activities, and not mere shyness. One's good qualities are his real decoration and not the crown that sits on his head. One who is satisfied in Christian consciousness and thus does not seek material pleasure or suffer material unhappiness is considered to be actually situated in happiness. The most wretched person is one addicted to sex pleasure, and a wise man is one who knows the process of freedom from such material bondage. A fool is one who gives up his eternal friendship with Lord Krishna and instead identifies himself with his own temporary material body, mind, society, community, and family. The real path is the path of devotional service that leads one to the Supreme Lord, and not simply a footpath that has no stones or thorns. The path of sense gratification is the wrong path because it simply leads one to utter confusion. Predominance of the mode of goodness is real happiness, real heaven, and not the abode of Indra. The predominance of the mode of goodness, ignorance is hell. The spiritual master is the best friend who saves us from all danger, and he is non-different from Krishna, the spiritual master of the entire universe. Our material body is our real home, not a structure of bricks and cement. One who possesses all good qualities is actually rich, not a rascal with a big bank balance. A real lord is one who has conquered material desires and ascended to the transcendental platform, and not an aristocrat who engages in all sorts of abominable activities. Thus, being asked by Uddhava, Shri Krishna has nicely described the difference between good qualities and forms. The Lord concludes his analysis by stating that there is no need for further elaboration of these good and bad qualities. Indeed, the purpose of life is to transcend materially good and bad qualities, come to the liberated platform of pure Krishna consciousness. The Lord is full of 6 opulences. So these are like the 6 qualities which are called bhag: wealth, strength, beauty, fame, knowledge, and renunciation. The supreme accomplishment is when one engages in the service of the Supreme Lord. To remain aloof from the material conception of life is fruit of actual knowledge. To indulge in sinful activities unrestrictedly is the most wretched condition of life. To spontaneously abhor sinful life is the sign of true modesty. Good qualities are the actual wealth of the living entities. To give up the quest for sense gratification and achieve satisfaction due to love for the Lord is real happiness. The lust for material enjoyment produces limitless distress. Possessing knowledge of how to free oneself from the bondage of material existence is a real learning. To identify one's self as the gross and subtle material coverings is utter foolishness. The true path of life is the one shown by the spiritual master who is coming in disciplic succession and thus authorized by the Supreme Lord. The wrong path is a life of sense enjoyment, which simply leads to the bewilderment of one's mind. A predominance of the mode of goodness is real heaven, and a predominance of the mode of ignorance is real hell. The Supreme Lord and the spiritual Master, who is the eternal servant of the Lord, are one's real friends. The material body is one's actual place of residence. One who possesses good qualities is actually rich, and one who is dissatisfied with his position, which is the result of his previous karma, is actually poor. Sense enjoyers, those with uncontrolled minds and senses, and those who are overwhelmed by greed, are truly misers. And Sanskrit term for that is gripping. One whose intelligence is never swayed by the three modes of material nature is a real controller. One who acts under the influence of the three modes of material nature is controlled and dependent. To look for material qualities and faults is itself a fault. While cultivating transcendental qualities, one should give up the habit of finding fault in others. So this is the end of this chapter 13. So next week we'll start chapter 14, where the title is Pure Devotional Service Surpasses Knowledge and Detachment. So let's end the class here today. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.